Every time you send a message with a yellow smiling face, you become part of an invisible revolution. A revolution that has changed the way we express our feelings forever. Think about it. Once, conveying joy required writing a detailed letter. Today, a single symbol is enough. Small digital pictograms have become a universal language of emotions, understood from Tokyo to New York. They compress complex feelings down to the size of pixels and fit on a smartphone screen. But what do we gain and what do we lose in this process? Smileys, emojis, memes, and GIFs form a new emotional reality where speed is more important than depth, and a visual code replaces thousands of words. We have learned to react instantly to messages, choosing from a palette of ready-made emotions. But can the full spectrum of human experiences truly be conveyed through standardized symbols? And are we not losing the ability to express complex feelings with words? This digital transformation of emotions has become an unnoticed revolution that has taken place right in our pockets. It all began with a colon and a parenthesis. In 1982, Professor Scott Fahlman sent a message to the Carnegie Mellon University Electronic Bulletin Board. I propose that we use Smiley for jokes. This moment became a turning point in the history of human communication. A simple combination of punctuation marks transformed into the first digital symbol of emotions. Before this, written communication lacked non-verbal cues, tone of voice, facial expressions, gestures. Text emoticons were the first attempt to fill this gap. They spread like a virus across early internet forums and chats, where users invented ever-new combinations. Smiley for a wink, smiley for sadness, O for surprise. The real revolution occurred in the 90s when the Japanese company NTT Docomo introduced the first graphic emojis. The word emoji comes from the Japanese words picture, and moji, character. These small pictograms became an integral part of Japanese mobile culture before conquering the entire world. In 2010, Unicode included emojis in its standard, which led to their global spread. Today we have over 3,000 official emojis, covering everything from basic emotions to complex concepts and cultural symbols.
Мемы – это нечто большее, чем просто забавные картинки. Они стали зеркалом нашего коллективного бессознательного, отражающим общие переживания, страхи и надежды. Когда миллионы людей делятся одним и тем же изображением, добавляя к нему свои интерпретации, происходит уникальный процесс коллективного эмоционального катарсиса. Мемы позволяют нам смеяться над тем, что в обычной жизни вызывает тревогу или боль. Вспомните, как во время пандемии мемы о самоизоляции помогали людям справляться с тревогой и чувством изоляции. Они стали своеобразной формой коллективной терапии. В отличие от смайликов и эмодзи, мемы обладают удивительной способностью передавать сложный культурный контекст. Один образ может содержать отсылки к политическим событиям, поп-культуре и социальным явлениям одновременно. Это многослойные эмоциональные сообщения, понятные только посвященным. Психологи отмечают, мемы работают на принципе распознавания общего опыта. Когда мы видим мем и думаем «это точно про меня», мы ощущаем связь с тысячами других людей, испытывающих те же чувства. Это создает невидимое сообщество единомышленников, объединенных общим эмоциональным языком. Однако у этого явления есть и обратная сторона. Мемы часто упрощают сложные эмоциональные состояния до уровня шаблона. Они превращают нюансированные чувства в готовые формулы реакций. Мы рискуем утратить способность артикулировать свои уникальные переживания, вместо этого выбирая из каталога готовых эмоциональных шаблонов. Примечательно, что жизненный цикл мемов становится все короче. Если раньше популярный мем мог циркулировать месяцами, Сейчас он устаревает за несколько дней. Это отражает ускоряющийся темп нашей эмоциональной жизни и постоянную жажду новых форм выражения. If emoticons capture a moment and memes create context, then GIFs add a dimension of time to our digital emotionality. These short-looped video fragments have become a real breakthrough in online communication. They convey not just a static feeling, but an entire emotional story unfolding over time. When words are powerless to convey sarcasm and a static emoji is too simple, a GIF of Stanley from The Office rolling his eyes comes to the rescue. Psychologists note that our brain responds to moving images in a special way. We are evolutionarily programmed to notice movement and read its emotional subtext. GIFs activate mirror neurons, the very brain cells that make us empathize when we see other people's emotions. Research shows that the perception of a moving image occurs at a deeper, often subconscious level. We literally feel the emotion embedded in the GIF. A short clip of Jennifer Lawrence awkwardly applauding at the Oscars conveys more shades of irony than an entire paragraph of text. The uniqueness of GIFs lies in their ability to transmit not only basic emotions, but also complex social interactions. They convey subtle nuances of human behavior, awkwardness, confusion, silent approval, sarcasm, all that is difficult to express in words or static images. This is a new visual language where movie quotes, celebrity reactions, and TV show snippets turn into common emotional references. When we send a GIF of Leonardo DiCaprio raising a glass, we are not just expressing approval, we are appealing to an entire cultural context. We have entered an era of new grammar of feelings, where visual symbols form an alternative system of emotional expression. Traditional punctuation no longer merely organizes text. It becomes a building material for emotions. An exclamation mark is no longer just a sign of exclamation, but a signal of excitement or anxiety. An ellipsis has turned into a universal code for unspoken thoughts or hints. Even the absence of a period at the end of a message can be interpreted as a sign of irritation or coldness. Digital platforms have created their own linguistic rules. On Twitter, caps are perceived as a shout, while deliberately misspelling words can signal irony. We are witnessing the birth of a parallel system of punctuation for feelings where plus signifies a degree of joy, and the number of exclamation marks is directly proportional to emotional intensity. Linguists note the emergence of new syntactic structures specific to digital communication. A message ending with an emoji acquires an additional emotional layer, impossible in traditional written speech. Emojis function as nonverbal markers, compensating for the absence of intonation and facial expressions. This phenomenon also transforms offline communication. Young people begin to use the word literally as an intensifier of emotions, rather than an indication of factual accuracy, a direct consequence of digital habits. Phrases from memes penetrate everyday speech, becoming cultural codes comprehensible only to the initiated. We are observing the formation of a multi-layered communications system, where text, visual symbols, and cultural references create a complex message. One message can contain several layers of meaning, from the literal meaning of words to hidden cultural references, accessible only to a certain circle of people. The paradox of modern digital communication lies in the contradiction between speed and depth. We gain the ability to instantly share emotions, but paid for it with the simplification of the entire palette of human experiences. One click, and your heart is broken. Two taps, and you're crying with laughter. But can a standardized set of pictograms convey the full complexity of what goes on inside us? Psychologists are raising the alarm.
A generation raised on digital emotions shows a decreased ability to verbalize their feelings. It's easier for them to send a GIF of a crying cat than to explain the reason for their sadness with words. However, it would be a mistake to see only degradation in this. Digital emotions have opened new horizons for those who find it difficult to express feelings in a traditional way. People with autism, for example, note that emojis help them better understand the emotional subtext of messages. Visual symbols become a bridge between different ways of perceiving the world. It is also interesting how digital emotions are transformed in the hands of users. We use symbols not for their direct purpose, imbue them with ironic undertones, and create complex combinations. This is a kind of creative resistance to standardization. We refuse to squeeze the richness of inner life into a limited set of pictograms and instead invent new ways of using them. Perhaps it is in this creative reinterpretation that the key to preserving emotional depth in the era of digital communication lies. Imagine a digital world where your ability to recognize emotions depends on understanding pixels on a screen. Emotional literacy today is not only the skill of reading a person's facial expressions in real life, but also the ability to interpret digital symbols of feelings. Psychologists note a paradoxical trend. We have become better at recognizing emotions in the digital environment, but worse in real communication. Research shows that teenagers who grew up in the smartphone era have difficulty identifying emotions from the facial expressions of a live interlocutor. They are accustomed to the unambiguousness of digital symbols and get lost in the multifaceted nature of real facial expressions. When a smiling face on a screen always means joy, it's hard to recognize a smile that hides pain or awkwardness. However, digital emotionality also develops new skills. We learn to read context, analyze combinations of symbols, and recognize irony in the use of inappropriate emojis. This is a kind of evolution of emotional intelligence, adapting to the new digital reality. Particularly interesting is the phenomenon of emotional multitasking. A modern person is able to simultaneously conduct several emotionally rich dialogues in different messengers, switching between various emotional registers. This forms a new type of emotional flexibility, unknown to previous generations. But there is also a downside. We observe an increase in emotional superficiality, the ability to quickly react to many stimuli, but without deeply experiencing each emotion. Digital feelings are becoming increasingly fleeting, and our attention is scattered among dozens of emotional micro-interactions. Perhaps the most important skill of emotional literacy in the digital age is the ability to switch between different modes of perception. From quickly reading digital symbols to deeply experiencing real feelings in direct human contact. Are you seriously not getting that this is sarcasm? I even put a mail, a phrase that could be the motto of modern intergenerational conflicts. When a 20-year-old sends his grandmother a message with a skull emoji, he's expressing delight while she's calling an ambulance. This isn't just a funny misunderstanding, it's a symptom of a deep communication gap. Digital emotional symbols have become a new language, and like any language, they require learning. The problem is that different generations have learned different dialects. For Generation Z, the upside-down smiley means passive aggression or irony, while their parents perceive it literally as an expression of playfulness. Studies show that people over 50 interpret emojis primarily by their direct visual meaning. Younger people, however, see them as complex cultural codes whose meanings are constantly changing. The clapping hands emoji for the older generation means applause. For young people, it can be a way to emphasize every word in a sarcastic comment. This gap creates not only amusing situations, but also serious communication problems. Representatives of different generations literally speak different emotional languages. An emoji sent with good intentions can be perceived as a sign of disrespect, and the absence of an emoji in a message from a teenager might be taken by a grandmother as coldness. What's even more interesting is the phenomenon of reverse learning. Children teach parents the modern digital language. This overturns the traditional model of knowledge transfer from older to younger generations and creates a new dynamic in family relationships. Behind digital emotions lies a dark side, rarely discussed in enthusiastic articles about new emojis. When we replace complex human experiences with standardized symbols, we create fertile ground for manipulation and misunderstanding. Consider this. The same winking emoji can be interpreted as a friendly joke, flirtation, or a veiled threat. It all depends on the context and the relationship between the interlocutors. This ambiguity opens up a wide field for emotional manipulation. Passive-aggressive behavior thrives in the digital environment. The phrase, "everything is fine," with a period at the end, is perceived quite differently than the same phrase with an exclamation mark or an emoji. People have learned to use these subtle differences to express dissatisfaction without stating it directly. This creates a toxic communication environment where interlocutors are constantly forced to decipher hidden messages. Even more dangerous is the phenomenon of the digital mask. In real life, it's hard to pretend to be happy for long when you're devastated. Your body will give you away. In the digital world, simply placing a smiling emoji is enough to create the illusion of well-being. We lose the ability to distinguish authentic emotions from their digital imitations. Research shows a disturbing trend. People who actively use emojis in communication often struggle to express complex emotions in real life. They become accustomed to simplified emotional schemes and lose the skill of nuanced emotional expression. Adolescents, whose emotional sphere is still developing, are particularly vulnerable. They learn to express emotions in a world where every feeling must fit into 40 by 40 pixels. This leads to emotional flatness, an inability to recognize and express subtle shades of experience. When an emoji crosses national borders, its meaning can change dramatically. A symbol perceived as friendly in one culture may turn out to be offensive in another. The thumbs-up emoji is a universal sign of approval for the Western world, but in some Middle Eastern countries, it carries an obscene connotation. This cultural difference creates invisible barriers in global digital communication. We observe two opposing processes. On one hand, the unification of emotional symbols under the influence of dominant Western culture, and on the other, the resistance and adaptation of these symbols to local traditions. Japanese users, for example, use the bowing emoji to express apologies, a concept that has no direct equivalent in Western digital communication. It is particularly interesting to observe the transformation of memes when they cross cultural boundaries. The Russian meme "Ждун" awaits acquired completely new meanings, becoming popular in China as sea elephant seal. Meanings shifted, contexts changed, but the emotional resonance remained. Colors in the digital emotional palette also have different cultural codes. The yellow color of standard emojis is perceived neutrally in the West, but in some Asian cultures, it is associated with funerals and mourning. This creates a subtle dissonance in international communication. Paradoxically, the globalization of digital emotions does not erase cultural differences, but makes them more prominent. When we use the same symbols, but imbue them with different meanings, new types of misunderstanding arise. Researchers of digital communication call this phenomenon the illusion of a common language. We think we are speaking the same emotional language, but in reality, we are using different dialects. In a world where a single symbol can replace a whole spectrum of emotions, How do we preserve the depth of human communication? The art of conscious digital dialogue begins with a simple realization. An emoji is a tool, not a substitute for genuine feelings. The first step towards emotional balance is to periodically take digital breaks. Put down your smartphone and spend time in face-to-face conversation, where your smile is real, not pixelated. Studies show that even 20 minutes of live communication significantly improves our ability to read non-verbal cues, a skill that atrophies with an excess of digital communications. The next practice is emotional concretization. Instead of automatically sending an emoji, try to describe your feelings with words. "I'm touched by your care" creates a deeper connection than just heart. This doesn't mean abandoning digital symbols. It's important to supplement them with verbal expression, especially when it comes to significant emotions. Pay attention to your digital habits. Many of us use emojis as an automatic reflex, without thinking about what we actually feel. Practice a momentary pause before sending a message. Ask yourself, does this symbol truly reflect my state? Am I not hiding more complex feelings behind it? Develop digital empathy, the ability to read between the lines in online communication. Pay attention not only to the choice of symbols, but also to response time, message length, and changes in writing style. These nuances often say more than 10 exclamation marks. Remember the cultural differences in the interpretation of digital symbols. What is a harmless joke for you may carry a completely different meaning for an interlocutor from another culture. When in doubt, ask and clarify. What awaits our emotions in a world where technology develops faster than we can adapt to it? We stand on the threshold of a new era of feelings, where the boundaries between digital and human are becoming increasingly blurred. Researchers at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology are already working on creating empathetic computers, systems capable of recognizing and responding to human emotions in real time. Imagine a messenger that analyzes your micro-expressions during a video call and suggests emojis that match your true feelings, rather than those you try to demonstrate. Next-generation neurointerfaces could go even further, allowing emotional states to be transmitted directly from brain to brain, bypassing the limitations of symbols and words. But are we ready for such a degree of emotional transparency? Perhaps digital emojis and memes have their own value. They create a necessary buffer between our inner world and external perception. They give us time to reflect on our feelings before sharing them with others. The most important challenge of the future is preserving authenticity in a world where emotions are increasingly mediated by technology. We will have to learn to balance the convenience of digital forms of expression with the depth of direct human contact. Perhaps the key skill of emotional intelligence in the 21st century will be the ability to consciously choose when to use an emoji and when to look someone in the eye and speak words from the heart.